Easy Tigers. I hope everyone is fine and dandy. 2 sessions in 1 week, you are having it off. I thought I'd slip this one in quickly because it just keeps poking up everywhere, so I thought I'd just bring it out. I've come across it, I've done a few bits on it before, but I'll do it again. First things first, big up the Patreons, one love to you all. If you want to support me, links in the description. Let's crack on. Right, so what it is, I keep seeing electric cars, electric scooters, electric this and that popping up from the early 1900s. We went through all this a year and a half ago, so we know all this. But one thing I've noticed after going over these pictures again is a little device that I keep seeing lit up everywhere, which is the Mercury arc rectifier. That's right, Mercury. Now I'm going to go through its role in the secret underground tube system, which we call the Mail Rail, its role on the London Underground, and also its role in charging electric cars that are over 120 years old, just like this. So let's get stuck into it properly, shall we? The history of the electric car. It all started in 1832. The very first car was an electric car, and it was not a pattern motor car designed by Carl Benz. A short cultural history. Right, so the history of the electric car started with British inventor Robert Anderson. He built his electric powered vehicle in Aberdeen, a port city in north east Scotland, between 1832 and 1839. He had once presented it in an industrial exhibition in 1835. The car could travel around 12 km per hour. It was a bit cumbersome to the steer, but the drive unit was almost as quiet as the powertrain in the new Tesla. This pioneer in automotive history used a disposable battery for this vehicle, and crude oil was used to generate the electricity. This is how Anderson managed to get his electric car on the road long before famous three-wheeled gas-powered Benz pattern motor car in 1886. It stands as proof that cars did not run on gasoline from the beginning. It also goes to say here that in 1881 there was a guy, some French guy, and he built a electrical trike. But the problem I have with this is he says it run on batteries, lead batteries, but batteries can't store alternating current. They can only run on direct current, right? So I don't know how they got this, because it's literally the year after that is when they said they made the first power station for the public, which was the Holborn Viaduct, and that generated alternating current. So if you're getting alternating current from the power station to your house, how was you converting it into direct current? Let's examine these old photos, shall we? These photos that are over 100 years old are better than some of the pictures from the 1960s. I digress. Anyway, cables coming out of this wooden structure, charging up the back of this electric car. Now, this was the early 1900s. That's 110 years old or 115 years old. Same with this one. And same with this one. Now, if you look at the little charger, this one looked like it had no steering wheel. Maybe they were messing around with Photoshop back then as well, who knows, eh? But the point is, this device on the right hand side here, this is what housed the Mercury arc rectifier. Here you go. See, behind it is where it hid. So we're going to have a look at how these things worked and how they changed, or they rectified, alternating current into direct current. And I think it's incredible how they could do this back in the day, you know. This seems like an advanced bit of machinery, but it's old world tech. Very strange. Here we go, look. Mercury arc rectifier charging set. So this was a charging set for the electric cars run, and look, 156 miles on one charge. This is 120 years ago. What happened, eh? And here we go, the Mercury arc rectifier. Now, I actually found one of these in Malta, and I'll show you the footage of it later. And I nicked 770 grams of mercury out of it. I'll show you all later anyway. Let's go. If you could stay with me for a minute, I promise you I won't bore you. A Mercury arc valve or Mercury vapor rectifier is a type of electrical rectifier used for converting high voltage or high current alternating current AC into direct current DC. It is a type of cold cathode gas-filled tube, but is unusual in that the cathode, instead of being solid, is made from a pool of liquid mercury and is therefore self-restoring. As a result, mercury arc valves were much more rugged and long-lasting and could carry much more high currents than most other types of gas discharge tubes. See, this is where it gets a bit booky. Invented in 1902 by Peter Hewitt, mercury arc rectifiers were used to provide power for industrial motors, electrical railways, streetcars and electric locomotives, as well as radios, transmitters and high voltage direct current. Now the problem lies with me is if they were invented in 1902, how were all these other things how was these electric cars being charged up? How was in the 1880s the London Underground and the mail rail converting the power? If they had to use direct current and the only power station was generating was alternating current, how were they doing that? See, I think that's a mix up there and I've caught them out lying. But how do these work then? The operation of the rectifier relies on an electrical arc discharge between the electrodes in a sealed envelope containing mercury vapour at a very low pressure. A pool of liquid mercury acts as a self-renewing cathode that does not deteriorate with time. The mercury emits electrons freely, whereas the carbon anodes emit very few electrons when heated. So the current of electrons can pass through the tube in one direction from the cathode to the anode, which allows the tube to rectify alternating current. When an arc is formed, electrons are emitted from the surface of the pool, causing ionisation of mercury vapour along the path towards the anodes. The mercury ions are attracted towards the cathode and the resulting ions bombarded, the pool maintains the temperature of the emission spot, so long as the current of a few amperes continues. So there you go. Early 1900s, 120 years ago, they were using mercury to rectify, to convert AC to DC. Now what else were they using mercury for back then? I mean, look at this device, look at it. This looks like some real old world tech. And don't get me wrong, well, do get me wrong, I don't believe these were invented when they said. I reckon they were around a lot earlier than that. And I believe that mercury has a massive part in free energy. And that's why we don't hear of mercury, that's why we're told it's so dangerous and poisonous, don't go near it, all that jazz. But it's like anything, do a bit of research and common sense, you'll be alright. But look at it, look, absolutely beautiful there. Now like I said, I actually found two of these in Malta in an old theatre. It used to be an old discotheque and it converted it into, it used to be a theatre, then it converted into a disco. But then what happened is the disco shut down, but they left the top floor alone. So on the top floor was the cinema. They had all the electrical stuff up there, stuff like this. They had the mercury arc rectifiers. They even had reels from the 1950s, and I'm going to show you all that in a minute. But have a look at these. These are the mercury arc rectifiers. They're everywhere, and I can see them everywhere now. And I've been looking at these pictures for almost 2 years, and I never noticed. And it's funny how you progress and you learn yourself as you get better and wiser. Wise up, eh? And again, just here, just on the left hand side, you can actually see, when you follow the cable round, the mercury arc rectifier lit up, doing its thing. So the power comes in AC, that converts it to DC, which allows you to charge up the appliance, in this case the electric car, 120 years ago. What happened? What happened? Oh, I can tell you what it was. Petrol. They wanted you to pay for petrol and fuel and things like that. That's what happened. You know the script. I don't need to talk about that. You know the script. We all know the script. This is a commercial world. Everything is done to sell it to us. That's the job of the government. It's to take our money and give it to private companies. But never mind. So yeah, back to the rectifiers, eh? What a piece of tech. Now, I was actually going to go to the mail rail this week to do a tour there, and apparently they've got a working mercury arc rectifier there. So I will be going there probably in the next couple of weeks, probably. But this is what, so they've changed. So it used to be that, but now what they've brought out is they brought out these rectifiers. Now the Mercury arc rectifiers, they got replaced in the 70s. And what they did was they replaced it with these little gadgets. These are rectifiers. So you've got the AC currents going in the centre, and then you've got the direct currents coming out on the outside ones. So it's sort of like a little transformer as well, you know. Now I want to know is what happened to all that mercury. Like I said, I got 770 grams exactly out of one Mercury arc rectifier. There must have been millions. For instance, how many people had electric cars in the early 1900s? So many people, millions of people. So that there'd have been millions of Mercury arc rectifiers, plus the ones used on the tubes, plus the ones used on the mail rail. Like, where is all this mercury gone? And like I said, the little mini underground railway for the mail in London. Let's have a look. I was exploring an archive today, blah 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 blah. Let's see what it says. It's called a Mercury arc rectifier. It's a large glass bulb, and at the bottom is a puddle of liquid mercury, and it really does glow bright blue when switched on. There were several Mercury arc rectifiers in the mail rail. They played a vital role powering the railway from 1959 to 1980s. And again, I believe they're playing with dates again, because when did the mail rail come out? That came out years ago. So what power was that using before the Mercury arc rectifiers come along? It was using alternating current, but how did it convert it? It's just a load of cobblers. It's all a load of cobblers. History is a lie. It is a complete lie. And again, let's have a look at London Underground. Just while we're talking about London Underground, see, this is This is the most modern map of the London Underground in 2022, and this is like in 1878. Look how many tunnels there is, and look how many times it passes the Thames. It goes over the Thames 13 times. Like, who dug all this out? There was no power back then. Is this all dug out by hand? Look at Clapham Junction. Thriving, mate. Absolutely thriving. And this is 1878 or 1888. It's basically 130, 140 years ago. Yet the whole place is bored out. Nothing's changed. What, so they dug all this out in a matter of 10, 15 years? Was the whole of London a building site? No. These tunnels are ancient. They've been going on for ages. Every city in the world has a subterranean network of tunnels that we call a tube station, which is old world. We use modern trains in it now, but God knows what was in it before. This is the footage of me in Malta, and I did a lot of urban exploring. I'm actually in an extremely old theatre, and this is a hatch I went in. See at the top, and there's a Mercury arc rectifier. Look at that little baby. That's the one I nicked the mercury out of. This one wasn't broken. That's me. So here we go. This is the room where they did the film, and it had all this old tech in there, really old. This had not been used since the 60s up here. And below me, because I'm at the very top of the building, below me was the hall where they did the dances and they did the theatre and all stuff like that. Look, reels. God, I miss Malta. But look, here we go. So they'd shoot the film through there. Got the old wooden barrels. And they're here, look. And I swear people, look, this had medicine that hadn't been touched in God knows how long. Medicine and DIY stuff. But again, we just went past one of the machines, and I found another Mercury arc rectifier on the floor here, but this one had been broken. But that one belonged, look at the bed, people were squatting in here. But that one belonged in this gadget here. And now when I'd done the research on this place, this actual gadget was for the revolving doors. So there is where the Mercury arc rectifier would sit. And I guess now I've done the research that the doors, the revolving door is direct current, and that place was supplied in alternating current. That's why they had to get the Mercury arc rectifier. And this is the Mercury that I stole out of there. I don't care that I stole it because I'm not going back to Malta now. But there we go, 770 grams. In the end, I had to give it away. I couldn't do nothing with it in the end. So I'll give it to my mate Antonio. And I think he was going to try and make some sort of free energy device out of it. But I don't know, I haven't even spoke to him, God knows how long. But one love, mate, if you're listening, I doubt it, but one love. 770 grams. So where did all that mercury go then? If every electric car's power station or charging station had 770 grams of mercury, say half the houses down the street had it, you're talking millions and millions and millions of grams of liquid mercury. And where is that gone? It's been taken out. It's been stolen from us. It's been stolen. Yeah, so the Netley Hospital, big up my mate Michael for this one. He showed me this one and I am blessed for it. Netley Hospital, it was the longest building in the world at its time and it was 1/4 mile long. And it was a military hospital. It had a pier built for it and it only lasted 100 years. Why build something, the biggest building in the world, and last 100 years? Let's see what it says. The hospital eventually opened for patients on March the 11th, 1863. It was 1/4 mile long and it had 1,000 beds and was Britain's largest military hospital and it cost £350,000 to build. Supporting infrastructure was also built, including a reservoir at Hound Grove and a gasworks. A cast iron pier was extended into Southampton waters in 1865. Right. And a railway was connected Netley to Southampton docks on 5th of March 1866. Even though being the longest building in the world, it was atrocious to stay there. And it says the hospital was situated within a larger area of land bounded by the River Itchen and the River Hamble, particularly around Shollin, that had become known locally as Spike Island. The term was subsequently used by wounded soldiers and prisoners of war to describe the location. So why build the biggest hospital in Europe, in the world, and why build the longest building in the world to rip it down 100 years later? And not only that, within that 100 years have the worst reputation. Like, people didn't want to go there. To me, it reminds me of sort of like a mental institution as well. And that's what it looks like. And it was around that period when they started banging people up in these places, non-conformists. But never mind. Tally-ho, hey. But what a beautiful building this was. And it's just incredible that you build something that on that scale and then knock it down. Look at the size of it. Look at the size of that. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Like, think of the building site. How many blocks and bricks do you reckon you used to build this? How many levels do you reckon this goes down? And when they said this was built in 1856, no way. This is an old world Tartarian building that got repurposed. Look at it. It doesn't belong there. And we're right, it don't belong there. That's why they get rid of it. Anyway, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all that jazz. And one love, everyone, one love. Ta-da. Ta-da.